Hey y'all, it's definitely morning and I'm definitely sitting in my van. I've decided to allocate the scarce resource of my time to make a short video. Uh, and this time, of course, has alternate uses, if that at all sounds familiar to you. This is coming from economics and specifically Thomas Sowell's Basic Economics about how to allocate scarce resources that have alternative uses. And boy, howdy, he does not mind drilling that into your head. This is an excellent book. I'm only one third of the way through, and I'm loving it already. Now, obviously, I already know economics, and especially basic economics. So why am I reading a book about a subject I actually know pretty well? Well, a couple reasons. I often read books about things I already know, partly because different people have different ways of explaining the topic, and I learn from the way they explain. That's actually one of the biggest reasons I read Thomas Sowell. There are some things I don't agree with him on, but I pretty much agree with him on most things, which is hardly surprising. In any case, I'm sorry, he has a great way of really cutting to the core idea, especially in economics. And it doesn't involve math. That doesn't mean Sowell doesn't know math himself. Same for me. But we both know most people don't think mathematically or don't think quantitatively. And what's great is Sowell brings economics back to the humanities subject it's always been. I have various friends in economics, academic economics, I should be specific, um, and econometrics, which has to do with a lot of fancy statistical analysis. And I'm not saying, it's not legit, it's totally legit, but the problem is, of course, this is led to some economists. The same thing happened with physics, by the way. You get bored economists, bored physicists, and then they start sticking their oar in, oh, I know math. This is this other area that I could apply math to. I've got these tools, let me apply them. And sometimes the application is not appropriate. What physicists have done to quantitative finance makes me laugh sometimes, and I'll just drop it there. Anyway, getting back to Basic Economics by Sowell. So he's not really teaching me any new concepts. I know all of these concepts already. And I've only gotten through, as I said, only a third of it. I don't even know what the table of contents is because, let's click to this one, I am listening to an audiobook version of this book. Well, I actually own a hardcover of this. I bought at a sale, but I've never opened it up. I have so many books. I have thousands of books. I really do, that are physical books. That is not to include all of the Kindle books and the e-books that I got from Gutenberg and other places. So one of my very scarce resources, and this is something to think about, one of my very scarce resources is my time. We all have scarce time. Even if we were in the Star Trek universe where we had replicators that could, give us food, give us all the material items that we wanted, it can't give us more time. So you would still have to allocate the scarce resource of your time. And, just thoughts. I'm just running my mouth right now, but sharing my knowledge. So I have a knowledge of one third of this book. But with that knowledge of one third of this book, I can already tell you that even if you know economics really well, and even if you don't want to teach it to somebody else, you will still get very useful information out of this because you probably do not know the examples that Sowell uses, unless you've read him before. Some of the examples are pretty classic to illustrate, the effects of, say, rent control, minimum wage, other aspects of different economic concepts and how different policy choices can work out. Because we've never had pure capitalism and we've barely had pure socialism. Those are just theoretical concepts. You actually have to go out in the world and apply things, make policies, make decisions, and we've seen how they turn out in history. So you get examples of such as Sears and Montgomery Ward starting out as mail order companies, and then of course they became department stores. Why did that happen? A&P used to be considered a monopoly in the grocery space. First of all, how did it get in that position? And then how did it lose that position? Because it's definitely lost that position. I like having so many examples, and the examples I especially value are the examples from the communist countries, specifically the Soviet Union and China. And also, not a communist country, but one that had a lot of government control or a lot of government restrictions in their economy, and that's India. So it's very interesting looking into the various examples of what were the specific constraints, because some of them I didn't know about. For the Soviet Union, I knew about the constraints. I didn't know about how it worked out. And what's very interesting is that a lot of this research came from Soviet economists, where they researched this. Now, I don't know if they had to wait until the Soviet Union fell to publish their results. This is basic economics. If I remember correctly, he does not have any footnotes in the book. And you have to go to a website if you want to get at the sources. So it's not in the book if you want to follow up with his examples. But I highly, highly recommend it. And continuing on, so first off, the examples. First off, the extreme clarity of how he explains each concept. And he just explains the concept. He has some illustrative examples, and then he drops it, moves on. And what's interesting to me is I liken him to G.K. Chesterton, who's another writer I really enjoy now. Chesterton, I've read his fiction, which is weird, and his nonfiction, which is also weird, especially his religious writings. And I'm often setting Chesterton's books down because I read one sentence and I'm like, and I have to sit and think about it because I know what he's getting at. And then I have to think through what are the implications of what he said. And something similar is going on with Sowell. These are it's not that you don't understand what he's saying. It's, I hear this, and then I'm like, what else does this apply to? Because the first section had to do with allocation of scarce resources that have alternative uses. And he uses that over and over again. Obviously, I've memorized it at this point. And it's especially effective when you hear it through an audiobook. In any case, and I'm Catholic and I have all the prayers memorized. I didn't have to do it explicitly. You do it just from going to Mass so often. In any case, going back to Sowell, I'm often thinking through, so when he was going through the goods, I'm like, oh, what else is a scarce resource? Because, of course, I think about death all the time, and so I know our time will come to an end at a certain point. So I know our time, our attention, is a scarce resource, and how do we allocate that? And that can be work. What am I going to work on? That can be, leisure, entertainment. What am I going to do? Dealing with your own household. Am I going to pay someone else to clean my house, or am I going to do it myself? There's a lot of different choices that we can make. And when we talk about time-saving devices, what that means, or time-saving services, we generally mean the amount that we're going to pay for it. Because a lot of these services existed, like washing your dishes. You could have hired someone who washes your dishes. But it was prohibitively expensive for all but the fairly rich in the United States in the 20th century. So generally, it was a housewife who was doing it, or in my case, you train the kids. So you have a lot of kids. They can wash dishes, but of course they may break the dishes, yada, yada. Anyway, moving on from that. But it is interesting thinking about it because you go down that chain of how do you allocate resources. Where did the word economics originally come from? It's Greek, obviously, but it had to do with running a household. And generally, that was women. And even in societies that were very patriarchal, a lot of times you had the women running the household, even if they're not the ones who are bringing in the money. They're often making decisions that allocate effort, labor, directing servants, making choices, and even giving instructions for other people to purchase things. The man of the house did not have time to go out shopping. There were servants to do that. But you have to tell the servants what to buy. In any case, it all goes back to housekeeping, and it's still a big issue. It's a big issue right now during COVID lockdowns with a lot of kids at home. And even if you have two parents in the household, it, depending on the age of the kid, they need more or less supervision. My own son is autistic. He's pretty good once you get him into the Zoom meeting, but he does need help sometimes with the computer, and he needs monitoring so that he doesn't run away, and that we give him incentives, usually honey made graham crackers, to sit there and do all of his lessons and to appropriately participate. That has been me at times, Stuart, and my daughter Maureen, who's at home. So we take turns. We're allocating our scarce resource of time while I'm working at home. And I've been able to divide it up because I'm the one who gets up the earliest. And so I attended D with his first class and then handed over to Stuart and Maureen. In any case, uh, another thing, so Basic Economics, excellent book, only 1/3 of the way through. I'll probably have additional thoughts when I finish it. Um, and another aspect of being an audiobook, as I said, I don't know what the table of contents is. I don't know what order the topics are going to come at me. I could look it up, okay, if I really cared. I don't. I like being surprised. It's partly entertaining, but it's very accessible. You don't need to know any math. You just need to understand people to a certain extent, and that you aren't mystified that people might stop doing something they're not paid enough for if there's something else that they can do that they'll get paid more for. Anyway, another thing I want to plug, and let me take a look. So you'll notice, so I have Actuarial News. I use this as, it's a resource I built for myself, but of course, it's free on the internet. Anyone can go look at it. It's because it's my specially curated sources, as it were, on things I'm interested in. And I'm interested in Thomas Sowell. And there is a biography by Jason Riley that's coming out, and there is a 1-hour program on his life. And so I learned all sorts of things about Sowell that I didn't know. And that's why I got into the Thomas Sowell reading kick starting in February, and it'll probably be for the rest of the year because the man has written a lot of books. I've gone through like 3 of his books so far. Some of them are kind of compilations of his newspaper column, which I've read over the years, so a lot of it was just a walk down memory lane. And guys, if you're doing republication of essays, please tell me what date it ran, because I'm sitting there going like, this must have been the mid-90s, thinking through the examples given, that it must have been contemporary, that it's 1996 versus 2014 makes a huge difference. In any case, thumbs way up on Basic Economics, whether you get it in the hardcover version and I'll have to dig it out of my library, use some of my scarce time to go searching for a book, because I do want to take a look at it and also hand it to my kids. Economics, this is a basic humanities. Everyone should know about it, even, I could say, especially if you're a socialist, but it applies in so many things beyond just money. It's how do you allocate your resources, and that can be your effort, your work, your money, your time, your skill. What do you train up for? How do you choose between different careers or different jobs? Because it's not all money. There's all sorts of things being allocated. Money is just one and one kind of information. There's other kind of information out there. So enjoy. Talk to you more about books later.